Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So it's July 9th, 2025 in Auckland, New Zealand. It is so nice to be back in Auckland. I'm reading from Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, Canto 5, Chapter 10. Maharaj Rahugana meets Jadabharata, Text 9. And you have this there? Yeah. Brahmana Uvacha Tvayoditam Vaktam Api Pralabdam Bratu Swamesya Dhyari Virabhara Kantur Yadisya Dadi Gamyamadva Piveti Rasauna Vidam Pravada. Brahmana Uvacha. The learned Brahmana Jadbharata spoke. Tvaya, by you. Uditam, explained. Vyaktam, very clearly. Avi pralabdham, without contradictions. Bhartuhu, of the bearer, the body. Saha, that. May, mine. Syat, it would have been. Yadi, if. Vira, O great hero, Maharaj Rahugana. Baraha, a load. Gantuhu, of the mover, also the body. Yadi, if. Syat, it had been. Adhigamyam, the object to be obtained. Adva, the path. Piva, very stout and strong. Iti, thus. Rasau, in the body. Na, not. Vidam, of the self-realized persons. Pravadaha, subject matter for discussion. Srila Prabhupada's translation. The great Brahmana, Jadbharata, said, my dear king and hero, whatever you have spoken sarcastically is certainly true. So this is already interesting. He's calling the king a hero, Vira, and he's saying, yes, what you said is true. Actually, these are not simply words of chastisement, for the body is the carrier. The load carried by the body does not belong to me, for I am the spirit soul. There is no contradiction in your statements because I am different from the body. I am not the carrier of the palanquin, for I am detached from the body. You have said that I am not stout and strong, and these words are befitting a person who does not know the distinction between the body and the soul. So that's indirect insult, which Krishna also does this to Arjuna. Yes, you're saying very learned words, but actually, learned people don't talk this way. The body may be fat or thin, but no learned man would say such things of the spirit soul. As far as the spirit soul is concerned, I am neither fat nor skinny. Therefore, you are correct when you say that I am not very stout. Also, if the object of this journey and the path leading there were mine, there would be many troubles for me. But because they relate not to me, but to my body, there is no trouble at all. Brahmana uvacha tvayoditam vyakta avi pralabdam bhartu same syad yadi vira bhartuhu gantur yadi syad adi gamyamadva piveti raso na vidam pravadaha. The great Brahmana Jadbharata said, my dear king and hero, whatever you have spoken sarcastically is certainly true. Actually, these are not simply words of chastisement, for the body is the carrier. The load carried by the body does not belong to me, for I am the spirit soul. There is no contradiction in your statements, because I am different from the body. I am not the carrier of the palanquin. The body is the carrier. Certainly, as you have hinted, I have not labored carrying the palanquin, for I am detached from the body. You have said that I am not stout and strong, and these words are befitting a person who does not know the distinction between the body and the soul. The body may be fat or thin, but no learned man would say such things of the spirit soul. As far as the spirit soul is concerned, I am neither fat nor skinny. Therefore you are correct when you say that I am not very stout. Also, if the object of this journey and the path leading there were mine, there would be many troubles for me, but because they relate not to me, but to my body, there is no trouble at all. Srila Prabhupada's purport. In Bhagavad Gita, it is stated that one who is advanced in spiritual knowledge is not disturbed by the pains and pleasures of the material body. The material body is completely separate from the spirit soul, and the pains and pleasures of the body are superfluous. The practice of austerity and penance is meant for understanding the distinction between the body and the soul, and how the soul can be unaffected by the pleasures and pains of the body. Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam was actually situated on the platform of self-realization. He was completely aloof from the bodily conception. Therefore, he immediately took this position and convinced the king that whatever contradictory things the king had said about his body did not actually apply to him as a spirit soul. So Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam says, you're right. Everything you say is true. But you're talking about the wrong thing. So that's a very good way to win an argument. Often when we try to win an argument, we just start out by saying, you're wrong. And then the person immediately becomes defensive. Right? So a very good way, a much better way, is to say, you're right. And something else. So I doubt if I'll ever do this, but it would be very nice. I once took some classes from a man who had done this with the Bible. He had gone through the Bible and seen, how does God teach? And how does Jesus teach? And he made a system of pedagogy based on that. And I thought, it would be a really nice thing to do with the Bhagavatam and the Bhagavad Gita and the Chaitanya Charitamrita. How does Krishna teach? How does Lord Chaitanya teach? I really like how Narada Muni teaches. He's one of my favorite teachers. But how is Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam teaching? Yes, you're right, but you're talking about the wrong thing. You're talking about the wrong thing. So Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam turns the whole discussion to another level. Yes, I am not stout and strong. You're right about that, but the reason I'm not stout and strong is you're talking about the body, and I'm not the body. You're saying to me, oh, you weakling, of course you can't carry the palanquin. And he's like, but that has nothing to do with me. So we see that Maharaj Rahugana has a different vision than Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. And we learn in the Bhagavad Gita about the vision according to the modes, how we see others according to the gunas, and how we can see people above the gunas. So I thought we'd look at those different levels of vision. And what time should I end the class? 8:30. Okay. And then what is the ideal vision? We'll look a little bit about the ideal vision. What would it mean to be in the world with the ideal vision, like Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam is? And then how do we get there? One of the things we teach in Career Dharma is that one should be above the modes of nature. And so one of the questions I get asked is that really practical? And how do we get there? So the vision of people in the modes, so this is described in Bhagavad Gita 18:20-22. That knowledge by which one undivided spiritual nature is seen in all living entities, although they are divided into innumerable forms. So what's that? Sattva, Rajas, or Tamas? One undivided spiritual nature is seen in all living entities, though they are divided into innumerable forms. Sattva. That knowledge by which one sees that in every different body there's a different type of living entity. That's Rajas. And that knowledge by which one is attached to one kind of work as the all-in-all, without knowledge of the truth, and which is very meager, is tamas. So in sattva you see that all living entities are spiritual. And all living entities are of the same spiritual quality, even though they have so many different forms. In Rajas, you see, here's a white person, here's a black person, here's a brown person, here's a male person, here's a female person, here's an old person, here's a young person, here's a tree, here's a bird. And you think that that's what they are, that that's actually what they are. Do we have religious systems that are like this? Oh yeah. They say that we're going to be resurrected out of the ground in our current bodies, which I have never found a very appealing philosophy. Does anybody want to have their current body eternally? Anybody? No. And then, you ask them, well, when you get resurrected, at what age are you going to be resurrected? Like, do I have to be old forever? Or if you died when you're 2, do you have to be 2 forever? Of course, they have no answer because it's all concoction. And there's religions that say, like, if you marry someone in our temple, then you're married to them eternally, which I always wonder how many people are really happy with that 20 years down the road. But again, that you're going to be in this body with these people, or, you're going to go to heaven, and in heaven, you're going to have all your relatives gathering around you, and they're all going to be in the same bodies. So there's even religious systems that teach you are this body. This is who you are forever. And you can see why there's a lot of people in the world who get really upset about this. And they want to do medical treatments to change their body because they're thinking this is who I am forever. Or some kind of way, plastic surgery, because this is who I am. And then you have in Tamagun, people don't even think about this. They don't even think about who are we. All they know is the work that they do. It's practically like an animal. I just know how to get my food, and I just know my eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. It's this very, very limited knowledge. I mean, maybe they think about these things a little bit because hardly anybody is in full tamas. If you were in full tamas, you would just be a chair. So usually people have a little bit of rajas and think about something about.
Just people call me online, they're not going to hear. So if you just put that mic below your sari there, below your mouth, it will work.
Why don't we put it? Can we attach it here?
It doesn't work, Mother, there.
It doesn't go here?
Just put it here, it will work.
Here.
Sorry.
On the sari.
Yeah.
Oh, that's not going to work on the sari.
That's what I was.
Saris move.
Sorry about that one.
A sari moves. That's what it is. Now is it all right? Most modern temples have some sophisticated camera and stuff. Anyway, just a little note. Yes. So even people in Tamagun tend to have a little rajas, and they tend to think about, my nationality, other people's nationality. They tend to think also in these bodily ideas. All right, then what's the vision above the modes? Because we might think that sattva gun sounds very spiritual, but sattva gun is not spiritual. The ego of sattva gun is you think, I am very spiritual, but it's not actually spiritual. It's still very ego-based. So then we turn to Bhagavad Gita 4:35. Having obtained real knowledge from a self-realized soul, you will never fall again into such illusion, for by this knowledge you will see that all living beings are but part of the supreme or in other words, that they are mine. So above the gunas, we don't just see that everyone is spiritual. We don't see that everyone is equal, but we also see mamaivam so jiva loke jiva bhuta sanatana. We see that everyone is part of the Lord. We see that they belong to the Lord. And we deal with all living entities in that mood. Can you understand the subtle distinction between sattva and above the modes? Sattva is just like, yes, we're all spiritual. And above the modes is, oh, you're also part of Krishna, you're also part of Krishna, you're also part of Krishna. When we're above the modes, then we can interact with every living entity in bhakti. Because I'm seeing that every living entity is a part of Krishna, and how I deal with them can please or displease Krishna. So what is it like to live like that, which is how Jad Bharata is living? What is that? What would our life be like? Because Jad Bharata in this verse keeps saying, I'm not actually carrying this palanquin. This is not my journey. None of this has anything to do with me. So these verses in the Bhagavad Gita have always fascinated me. What does that mean to be in that consciousness? So in 5:8-9, a person in divine consciousness, although engaged in seeing, hearing, touching, smelling, eating, moving about, sleeping, and breathing, always knows within himself that he actually does nothing at all. Because while speaking, evacuating, receiving, or opening or closing his eyes, he always knows that only the material senses are engaged with their objects, and that he is aloof from them. And it's just fascinating. And Krishna says something else very similar in 13:30. One who can see that all activities are performed by the body, which is created of material nature, and sees that the self does nothing, actually sees. What does that mean? What kind of, how does one move through life? And Prabhupada would sometimes give the metaphor of a car, that we know we're not the car. Although Prabhupada would talk about how sometimes people actually refer to themselves or others by their vehicle. Prabhupada will say some man's driving in a big car and there's some rickshawala, and he'll say, you know, hey, rickshaw, get out of the way, as if the person driving the rickshaw was the rickshaw. But we know we're not the car. And so we know that when the car is turning and the car is going faster and the car is going slow, I'm sitting in the vehicle, but I'm not actually doing these things. I'm not the one doing these things. It's a detached view of an observer, that I'm observing how my body is interacting, but I'm not identifying with it. Oh, that's happening to the body. That's the whole gist of today's verse. All these things, they're not about me. They're about a vehicle that I'm in, but not me. And then, of course, how do we see all living entities? The famous verse, Vidya Vinaya Sampane Brahmani Gavi Hasni Suni Chaiva Swapaketa Pandita Samadarshina. That we see all living entities as equal of respect. We may deal differently, we should deal differently, according to the body. We shouldn't be inviting dogs to sit at our dinner table. I hope I'm not offending anybody. But, you know, at the same time, we don't see that there's a difference in quality or nature between the dog and the human. And we feel, how can I do service? How can I do service for everyone? And Prabhupada once saw a little bug on his table, and he called his servant. I think it was in the middle of the night even. Prabhupada was translating. And he said, I think this bug is hungry. Can you put him outside to get something to eat? And when we're teaching about Varnashram, We're teaching about the Varna part of Varnashram. And things come up periodically where devotees will say, one devotee recently was saying, well, I couldn't have a job as a realtor because people won't become happy by having a house. And so what would be the service value of making sure that people have houses? And I said, does Krishna care if people have houses or not? Does it matter to him? Is his attitude like, well, let all the humans on the earth just live on the street in the rain and the wind? Could I be facilitating people having houses to please Krishna, not to please the jiva? Not, oh, I'm going to give you a house to make you happy, but I'm going to give you a house to make Krishna happy. Or we had one gentleman who it turned out he had a childhood dream of having barber shops, and then when he joined the Hare Krishna movement, he decided that that was all Maya. And it took us quite a while in doing a consultation with him. I said, what is this about barber shops? He said, well, I always wanted to have some business to help people be beautiful, but now I just realize we're not the body, and so it doesn't matter. And I said, well, if we had a Krishna conscious society, do you think there would be any barber shops? I said, if the whole country that we're in at the present was Krishna conscious, would there be barber shops? And there was this kind of long silence, and he said, yeah, you know, there would be. So we see all living entities as part of Krishna, and we think, I can take care of them as my service to Krishna. Krishna would like them to get their hair cut and a house to live in. Correct? Yes. So this is this vision, that this is not the living entity. The body is not the living entity, but just like I might want to make sure that people's cars are taken care of, although I know it's not their cars. Prabhupada was very pleased when in Mayapur we started creating our own cloth. And you might say the same thing, well, why does anybody need cloth? Cloth's not going to make anybody happy. Only Krishna consciousness will make people happy. But if you're thinking, well, Krishna would like the living entities to be clothed. So this is the view. I have nothing to do with this body. The body's just moving through the world. Everyone is just in this vehicle, but everyone is a servant of God. And the bodies people have, bhumirlapanalo vayukamano buddharedarcha, they're also Krishna's energy, and I can deal with them in service. You know, people who are just in sattva gun, they have a difficult time dealing with the world in service. They have a tendency toward the impersonal. And they're thinking, you know, there's no service for me to do. I just kind of float through the world as a detached being. But the devotee sees, this is not me, but I have service. Now, what would that feel like? That would feel very liberating, wouldn't it? As Krishna says, Yagnarta kamano natra lokoyam karma bandhana tadatam karma kontaya mukta sangha samachara. When we see everything as an opportunity for service, without identifying with the world, then we become liberated. We would be completely free. As Prabhupada says in today's purport, we wouldn't be affected by the pains and pleasures of the world. You know, all the verses where Krishna says, like we says, matrasparsas tukanteya sitosna sukadukada agama payano nichastam satikshvasvarita. And often we take that verse to mean repression. I'm not going to feel cold, I'm not going to feel cold, I'm not going to feel cold. I'm not going to get upset when someone insults me. I'm not, it's wrong. But what it means is that we're just not affected by it. Now, it's interesting that at the end of this whole section of Jad Bharata and Maharishi Hugana, it stated that Jad Bharata felt some waves of dissatisfaction when Maharishi Hugana was insulting him. So it's not that no changes are going to happen in the body and mind. When Vidura was insulted by Duryodhana, it said that the insults pierced his heart. So it's not that there's not going to be an effect in the body and the mind, but we're not going to identify with it. We're not going to think, that's me. Just like if your gauge goes down in the car and you know you have to put fuel in it, you don't feel hungry. Correct? You just say, oh, I have to put petrol in my car, or I have to charge my car. So in a similar way, we'd say, oh, the body needs to be fed right now, or the body needs to rest right now. But you're not identifying with it. And you're not really feeling it, like you don't really feel you don't feel the hunger of the car, so to speak. You're operating on a different platform. So then the person moves in the world and looks like an ordinary person, as Krishna says, the day and night. What's day for one is night for the other. But they look the same. I'm sure when Prabhupada was running a pharmacy, there was another pharmacy down the street, and it looked the same. And here's two different people running pharmacies. What is the difference? But Srila Prabhupada, running his chain of pharmacies, was having a very different experience. Or Arjuna on the battlefield, right? And Dushasthana on the battlefield. They both appear to be doing the same thing, but their experience of what they're doing is entirely different. So how are we going to get to that stage? So I thought we'd look at a verse in the Bhagavad Gita, 3:30. Which I feel gives us one of the keys as to how to get from sattva, rajas, or tamas, or some mix of them, whatever we're in, to transcendence. So 3:30 is Mai sarvani karmani sanyas yad atmachetasa nir asir nir mano bhutva yudyasva vigata jvara. So we can analyze this verse, which Prabhupada translates as, therefore, O Arjuna, surrendering all your works unto me, with mind intent on me, and without desire for gain, and free from egoism and lethargy, fight. We can analyze this verse into 6 points that Krishna is making. And 3 of them we could think of as what not to do, and 3 of them we could think of as what to do. So what not to do? Don't have a sense of proprietorship. Nirashi, without desire for profit. Don't think, I'm going to get something personally out of this work. Whatever it is we're doing, whether it's just regular bodily maintenance, like brushing our teeth, or whether it's our job or our family responsibilities, whatever we're doing. Even the work we're doing in the Hare Krishna movement, we shouldn't be thinking, well, I'm doing this so I can enjoy the results. I don't own it. This is Krishna's work. This is Krishna's service. It's not mine. You're taking care of someone else's child. You're taking care of Krishna's child. You're taking care of Krishna's house. You're taking care of Krishna's car. You're dealing with Krishna's living entities. You're dealing with Krishna's objects. They're not mine. Now, if we've been raised properly by our parents, we will take better care of other people's stuff usually. Isn't that a fact? We're more careful. We're going to feel more careful if we're borrowing someone else's car or someone else's equipment. We're taking care of someone else's child. Would you watch my child for an hour? We're probably going to be more attentive. Correct? So to have this view, nothing belongs to me. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur has these wonderful songs like this. He says, I see that my family members are simply your servants, and I'm earning the money to maintain your household, dear Lord. This is one of the reasons that householders are advised to have an altar, even if it's just pictures and not deities. So you have this concept that my house belongs to the Lord, not just a place to offer food so we don't get karma. Not just, my altar is my karma erasing machine. And this is why, like living here at the temple, and we think, oh, we're living here this is the Lord's property. Everything, my house, those of you who live in the little units on the property, I always amused that you call them units. Sounds like a math manipulative for children. The little unit I live in or wherever, if it belongs to Krishna. But even if you have your own house on your own property, who does it belong to? It belongs to Krishna. And I know of many devotees who go to their deities and tell them the accounting. This is how much money came in, this is how much money was spent. Prabhupada talks about that, to go before the deity. We'll come before the deity and give reports of how many books were distributed sometimes, or how many plates of prasadam. So if you think like that, the Lord He's the proprietor. He's the proprietor of all my talents. He's the proprietor of my intelligence. He's giving me intelligence. And then not trying to enjoy separately from the Lord. He's fine, as long as he's not screaming, he's fine. Yeah. So not having this concept, the essence of materialistic life is that I'm trying to enjoy separately from Krishna. Just like you can think about, kids where they want to do something that their parents don't allow, so they try to find a part of the house where their parents can't see them. Right? They'll sneak and find some sweet in the kitchen and go into their room and close the door, or go out onto the back deck and eat it or something. Of course, when you become parents, then you hide eating your sweets from your children. Don't let the kids see that we're having some desserts before the meal. Right? And trying to enjoy separately from Krishna, trying to take Krishna's property and enjoy it as if it were our own. This is the whole essence of, again, material life. The difference between Hanuman and Ravana. So Hanuman wants to unite Sita and Ram, and Ravana wants to take Sita and enjoy her himself. All enjoyment is Sita Devi or Srimati Radharani or Lakshmi Devi. And rather than enjoying, as Prabhupada would say, through Krishna, that I enjoy by uniting Krishna and his pleasure energy, I want to enjoy by taking that and enjoying it myself. So we might do that with money, with objects, or even the talents and the subtle satisfactions we enjoy in life. And just here it is for me to enjoy, as if we come upon a banquet in an empty room and we just think, it's all been put here for me. But one above the modes of nature sees that everything has been provided by Krishna out of his kindness. Like we read about Sudama Vipra, that both when he was extremely poor and when he was extremely rich, he really went from one extreme to another overnight, that in both cases he saw this as Krishna's prasad. This is the grace of the Lord. And to give up jwara, vigata jwara. So jwara means a fever. And Prabhupada translates this as being lethargic. So when we have a fever, we usually become lethargic. I can't do anything, I'm just sick. So we shouldn't be lazy. Prabhupada would say that Krishna didn't tell Arjuna, you just sleep on the chariot and I'll fight. Or sometimes Prabhupada would say, Krishna didn't tell Arjuna, you just smoke ganja on the chariot and I'll fight for you. But years ago, we had a printed way before internet, we had this regular printed magazine among the devotees, and it had a personals section. You know what personals are? Where you're looking for a partner, looking for a life partner. So people would describe themselves, this is what I'm like, this is what I'm looking for. And there was one advertisement there, someone wanting a wife, And he said, my favorite service is to sleep and dream about Krishna. I don't know how many women would be particularly attracted to that. So not to be lazy, but also this jwara can be understood as feverish in the sense of kind of undirected activity. What Prabhupada called active foolish, you know, like monkeys. I assume most of you have seen the monkeys in Vrindavan. So they are certainly not lazy, but they're also feverish in the sense that their activity is often not purposeful. Like where I stay, I've learned I can't hang my laundry outside because especially the teenage monkeys will decide that they want to dress themselves in my clothes. I mean, it's amusing, except that it gets monkey paws, dirt all over my clothes, and sometimes they rip them. You know, they'll actually wrap themselves up in the clothes. So jwara also not as just undirected feverish activity, that it has no purpose. So our activity should be, we should be active, but our activity should be purposeful, with intention, with a sankalpa. We should have a goal for what we're doing. Now, I could talk about this for a very long time, which I won't, but I'll just make a couple of points. That I see that a lot of the problems we have in our Hare Krishna movement are for lack of a vision. I could say that, I think we could say that a vast majority of the problems we have in our movement, both individually and collectively, but especially collectively, which then affects the individuals, is for lack of a vision. You know, when I was the head of a school, I had a vision for the school. Like, what would our students look like? I had a vision for if someone came for 1 year, if someone came for 2 years, if someone came for 5 years, and if someone stayed from ages 5 to 18. What would that person look like? What would they be able to do? What would they know? How would they move in the world? And then I could evaluate everything I was doing according to that vision. Okay, is this going to achieve the vision? Then don't do it. If this is going to, yes, then we'll do that. But I see that generally in our communities, we don't vision. If we vision, it's just about the temple. What's our vision for the temple? But how can you decide the vision for the temple if you don't have a vision for Auckland? And one devotee told me, oh yes, we have a vision for our city, but it was just like, who's going to do how many Harinams or something? And I was like, no, not like that. If all of Auckland was Krishna conscious, what would people be doing? Would there be barbershops? Would there be realtors? What kind of barbershops would there be? What kind of grocery stores would there be? How would things be running? How would the government be running? And then you can start talking about, what should I do? What should we do in our communities? How should we guide people? Because then we know where we're going. So the opposite of being feverish is having vision, having a direction, having a goal, having some idea, what are we trying to achieve? And in our own lives, we should have some idea of what we're trying to achieve. What is my sankalpa? What are we trying to achieve? What's our goal? What's our individual goal? What's our sadhya? We're doing sadhana, what's our sadhya? Whole conversation about this between Mahaprabhu and Ramananda Roya. What's our sadhya? To achieve prema for Krishna. To achieve prema for Krishna in some specific relationship. To revive, as Prabhupada would say, our original relationship with Krishna. That's our goal for ourselves. And we should see everything I'm doing. Is it related to that or not? If it's not related to it, don't do it. If it's related to that, do that. What's my goal for a community? Is we're trying to build a Krishna conscious society. What does that mean? What does that look like? What would people be doing? These are very important questions when it comes to dealing with our youth, dealing with kids aged like 12 and up, What world do we want you to work in? What are we preparing you for? And it's very important questions when dealing with all of our adult devotees. So that's the opposite of being feverish, which is either lethargic or just kind of running around doing things without knowing, why am I doing them? Okay, so then offer everything to Krishna with intention. As Krishna says, surrendering all your works. Mayi sarvani karmani. Intentionally giving everything we're doing to Krishna. Krishna, I'm doing this for your pleasure. I'm doing this for your pleasure. I'm doing this for your pleasure. Do you see how that's above the modes? I'm doing this for your pleasure. And then remembering that I'm the soul. Remembering that I'm the soul. And then interestingly enough, here Krishna is saying to Arjuna specifically, Yudhyasva, you should fight. Now that instruction should not be taken literally by all of us. This is hermeneutics. It doesn't mean that Krishna is instructing all of us to be fighting all the time. Some devotees take it like that, I think. But what this means in principle is that we should be doing duties according to our nature. Krishna is telling Arjuna, realize you're a soul, and then act according to the nature of your body. Fascinating, isn't it? One of the ways to get above the modes of nature is to act according to the psychophysical nature that we have. Now, metaphorically, that makes a lot of sense. If I'm trying to get from here to Wellington and I have a bicycle, I can't pretend it's an airplane. It won't work. I will very quickly crash, correct? Or if I have a boat, I can't pretend it's a bicycle. I will very quickly get stuck and I won't reach my destination. So this body, yantrarudani maya, this body and mind we have, well, it's not me, and it has nothing to do with me. It's the vehicle that I'm in right now. And this vehicle is going to take me, the soul, to my destination of Krishna Prema in a particular way, according to how this particular body and mind functions. Arjuna is going to get there by being a politician and a statesman and a warrior. And the florist in Mathura is going to get there by being a florist and making garlands. So how we're going to get there is according to our psychophysical nature. And if I try to get there according to someone else's psychophysical nature, I'm going to cause a disturbance. Then my work will become a bhayavaha, a vehicle of fear. And Krishna says in the 18th chapter, I think it's 1847, that we're not going to be affected by sinful reaction if we work according to our nature. In other words, we're not going to be implicated in the modes of nature. So we can summarize this looking at 1426 as Mam Chayo Vavicharena Bhakti Yogina Chatevate Sagunan Samatichaitam Brahma Bhuyaya Kalpate. But that sounds very general when we just hear one who engages in full devotional service, unfailing in all circumstances, at once transcends the modes of nature and thus comes to the level of Brahman. And I think often we tend to look at that kind of a verse and say, well, that means I just sit in the temple and chant all the time. Prabhupada in the purport to that verse said, this verse is a reply to Arjuna's third question, what is the means of attaining to the transcendental position? As explained before, the material world is acting under the spell of the modes of material nature. One should not be disturbed by the activities of the modes of nature. Instead of putting his consciousness into such activities, he may transfer his consciousness to Krishna consciousness. So this is also this important point, that we don't identify with the modes. The modes are going to affect our body and mind. This Prabhupada says this in his purport to 1422. Sometimes our body and mind are going to be affected by tamagun, sometimes rajagun, sometimes sattvagun. But Krishna says, one who does not hate illumination, attachment, and delusion when they appear, nor long for them when they disappear, knowing that the modes alone are active. Just like the weather changes, that's why Krishna is saying, right? Sitosna sukadukada. So right now it's cold, and later in the year it'll be hot. And probably later today it will start raining. Right? The whole time I'm here, it's going to be raining. So, you may have to have a raincoat or an umbrella, but you still do your business. I once asked a devotee in Ireland, I said, how do you get things done in the rain? And she said, if we weren't willing to get things done in the rain, we would never do anything. So whether it's raining or it's not raining, or it's hot or it's cold, we may have some, again, provision. How we dress may change, but we're not really affected by that. We go on with our life. So in the same way, we can go on with our life according to how the modes are impacting our body and mind. It's not me. So that's kind of the negative, this detachment from the body, this detachment from the modes. And the positive is using the situations in Krishna's service. Seeing that every situation I'm in, there's an opportunity for service, and in every situation I'm in, I can be a servant. So if our vision of reality is in the modes, we're going to suffer. King Rahugana is suffering in this story right now. He's really disturbed that his palanquin is shaking and that this new carrier doesn't seem to be up to the standard. It's bothering him. It's really irritating him. It's irritating him to the point that he's becoming insulting. So if we have a vision in any of the modes, we're going to be disturbed. So at least theoretically, to know I'm a soul, I'm above the modes, and then to attain that platform from detachment from the mind, the senses, and the body, and attachment to Krishna, practically in everything that we do. And that works. Does it take work? What do they say? It works if you work. People sign up for a course and never actually take it. You ever done that? Bought a book you never read, or signed up for a course you never actually listened to. Or we go get advice from someone and they say, why not, maybe you can do this, and then we nod our head and we just go ahead and do whatever we were doing before we ask for the advice. So sadhana means that it's a deliberate action. So these deliberate actions give up a sense of proprietorship, give up a sense of trying to enjoy separately, don't be feverish, have a goal, have a vision. What am I trying to achieve for myself? Have a vision for my family, have a vision for my society. And then intentionally, how can I make Krishna smile right now? How can I make Krishna smile right now? What can I do so Krishna will smile right now? How can I deal with this object, this person, this living entity, this job, this situation, so Krishna will smile in this moment? Because I am a soul and I am Krishna's servant. And then let me use the body and mind according to the way it's designed in this life. It doesn't really matter. Whatever body and mind you have, use it the way it's intended to be used. It's not very important. We don't have to lament what kind of body and mind we have or wish we had another type, which will simply get us into another type. So questions, comments, additions, subtractions, chastisements. Anything good here is from Prabhupada and Jad Bharata and Srila Sukadeva Goswami. And anything bad here, you please correct. Yes?
Thank you. When you were talking about being detached, like the example of Vidura being hurt by Durgana's words, or it's like you're detached, but you said it still hurts. So
yeah, it definitely still hurt. Vidura, it still hurt. But it said he saw this, it's interesting, he saw this as both the working of the internal and the external energy. It hurt. It definitely hurt. Said it was like the piercing of arrows into his heart. But he didn't take that hurt as his hurt. It's hurting, it's a pain for the subtle body, but I'm not the mind. And so he said, oh, look how Duryodhana is just being manipulated by the external energy. That's all it is. It's just Duryodhana being, and Vidura didn't try to repress those hurtful feelings. He didn't hate them. One who does not hate illumination, attachment, and delusion when they appear, nor long for them when they disappear. He didn't hate it. He observed it. And there's this piercing pain in my subtle body. This is due to Duryodhana being attached to the illusory energy and not seeing what's good for him. And this is also due to the working of the internal energy. That Krishna's using Duryodhana to get me out of here.
So would it be if someone does something or says something that hurts us, we can see it also that maybe Krishna's trying to show me something?
Krishna's always trying to show me something. Again, to see in every situation, what's my service? How can I be a servant? And what service do I have here? Vidura saw, my service is to leave and go on pilgrimage and then hear from Maitreya. That's the service. And maybe I wouldn't have left if no one had insulted me. Maybe I just would have hung around thinking it's my duty to keep advising. But when they were threatening him, we're going to beat you until, you're barely alive anymore. Then he's like, I got to get out of here. Krishna has another service for me. So you saw it like that. With Jad Bharat, when he had these waves of dissatisfaction, what service did he see that he had there? He's like, my service is to help this king. And we don't know exactly why, because it was the first time he'd ever spoken in his life. He'd acted blind, deaf, and dumb his entire life until this point. But he said, the service opportunity I have here is to instruct this king. He obviously saw the king as having some kind of receptivity that he didn't see in his parents or siblings or the dacoits. How do we know what Krishna wants me to do? This is one of the big questions, right? Someday I may write down, what are the big questions I get asked over and over again, all over the world? How do I know what Krishna wants me to do? Okay, well, we have general instructions in the Shastra. The Shastric instructions are very broad. But whatever you decide has got to be within the realm of Shastra. You can't decide, if you decide that, well, Krishna wants me to, blow up buildings or something and kill innocent people in the name of religion, you're not going to find any basis for that in Shastra. Is that clear? So first of all, it's got to be something that's supported by Shastra. And it's got to be supported by Shastra in general. You can't just find some quote that you like to support what you're doing. The Christians have a saying, the devil can cite Shastra, and Prabhupada quoted that once or twice. You can find some quote and twist it to support anything. But we're talking about looking at Shastra holistically. And then you have to see, is this something supported by sadhus? Is this something that sadhus do? Because sadhus are living the Shastra. What did Prahlad Maharaj do in his situation? What did Jad Bharata do in his situation? What did Srila Rupa Goswami do in his situation? What did Bhaktivinoda Thakur do? And, we can look at the sadhus. We can also look at our International Society for Sadhus. What are sadhus doing? And then we have guru. This keeps getting narrower, We have guru. Prabhupada's telling us, chant 16 rounds, follow these 4 regulative principles. Right? That's more narrow, and then we may have gurus who are advising us also. Now, by the way, when you get an instruction from guru, blind following is condemned. Discussing with guru is encouraged. And you can say to your guru, this isn't going to work for me, like Arjuna said to Krishna about going to the forest and doing meditation. That's not only permitted, it's actually encouraged. So the guru is not just someone who gives you orders and you just say, yes, sir, but it's also someone with whom you discuss. Okay, but please don't go to your guru for every little detail. Please don't do this. You know, I had someone once say to me, oh, Urmila, I accept you as my guru. Should I learn Mridanga? I said, I really don't care. If you want to learn Mridanga, you can. If you don't want to, you don't have to. Well, I'm only going to learn Mridanga if you order me. And I said, well, I'm not going to order you. And then she said, well, all right, I guess I'll learn Mridanga. I said, fine, that's very nice. And then she said, should I buy a red Mridanga or a blue Mridanga? And I said, please don't bother me with these kinds of questions. So it's not that you're going to go to guru. Do I walk out of the door with, which foot do I walk out of the door with, you know? What color shoes should I buy or something? Don't be ridiculous. Please don't be ridiculous. And then, so that's objective. You follow? That's objective. You've got Shastra and Sadhu and Guru. And then there's subjective. So by subjective, I really like Bhagavad Gita 9.2. Raja Vijja Raja Guyam Pavitram Idamutam Prachaksha Vagamam Dharmam Susukam Kartam Avyayam. So if I do this, will I gain knowledge? We experience this subjectively. When I do what Krishna wants, I understand things better. Everyone has had this experience? Things make sense. They fit into place. Yes? We've all, and then Raja Guyam, you understand the essence of things. Pavitram, you feel purified. If you think you're serving Krishna and you don't feel purified, you're doing the wrong thing. In contrast, we have Raghunath Das Goswami in text 6 of Manashiksha, who talks about bathing in burning donkey urine, thinking you're getting clean. So if you think you're getting purified, but you're becoming more and more angry and agitated and disturbed, then you're not pleasing Krishna. Prachaksha, you directly perceive it. Prabhupada loves to quote the verse from the 11th canto that when you eat, you get relief from hunger, pleasure, and nourishment. And Prabhupada says, you don't have to ask somebody else, have I eaten enough? I mean, unless you have some kind of metabolic disease. We should feel, prachaksha, we should directly feel. Agamam dharmyam, it should feel very authentic. Something real. So I always give the example, you can tell the difference, right? We can all tell the difference between some chemical artificial juice and a tree-ripened, fresh-picked fruit. There's a qualitative difference in the taste. Yes? Just some water with sugar and artificial colors and artificial flavors, and you pick your fruit off the tree, pre-ripened, organically grown, and you eat it, and you're like, whoa, dharmam, susukam, you should become happy. Prabhupada says, if you're not joyful, you cannot make any advancement. We should feel joyful. So that's subjective. Is that all right?